All right.
Rolling.
Clap. Hi, welcome to Simplify Your Life, Simplify Your Health. This call is going to be with me and Karen diMarco and all of you. And whether you're listening live or to the recording, I'm going to echo what I heard on a call about a very similar topic yesterday, to really park what you think this is going to be about and what you think you know on the shelf, and just bring your beginner mind as much as you can to this conversation. I know that I've been my own relationship with health and healing has been present for me. I've been looking at the way I react to and relate to my body as it moves through changes. I've had plenty of opportunity to do that over the last 5 years. I got critically ill in 2014. I have autoimmune conditions in my body. I have broken parts of me that have earned me what's called chronic pain, earned me this diagnosis. And I feel like the last couple of years I have 3 or 4 full-time jobs. I have my coaching practice and my design business. I have my life as an artist. I have my life as a maker of medicines, and I have the full-time job of keeping myself, going from one medical appointment to another and dealing with diagnoses and the mysteries and the stuff that comes with that. Oh, I forgot the one about keeping my car on the road, but that's just a part-time job.
Side note.
It's only 17 years old, so it's doing fine. It's a Toyota. And I could take my car in to get its joints lubed, not mine, but that's a different part of the conversation. So, and then what's this whole Simplify Your Life thing came about for me, just kind of like overnight. I woke up with this idea. But it's an unfolding of my work. I'm writing a book, and it's turning out to be this conversation, which is and has inspired me to share the conversations as I go. So really, y'all are helping me with my book content, and I'm sharing what I learn as I go, and I guess the key for me today that I may return to as we go is about neutrality. Is about how can I get the best out of my life when I'm not so invested in what's going to happen. I feel like I'm more present. I'm more presenced. I'm more responsible, which is a word I heard Karen and John using yesterday, and it's a very important word for me, because when I am weighed down by my fears, I don't respond very well. I'm not nimble, and I don't move with what's going on. When I am responsible, that's that place of being light and nimble and responsible comes when I'm not so attached to what's happening. And just got a notice from my daughter that she's about to join the call. Stop me for a second. So anyway, I've never had my daughter join me on one of these calls before, so that should be fun. And I've asked Karen diMarco, who I have been in conversations with a few times in my life, and have been, just really impressed by the way she approaches this topic. So I'm going to ask her to jump in and talk for a few minutes, and we'll just back and forth for a while. And then we're going to open up the conversation. If you have questions or comments, it will go, you can raise your hand. If you're new on Zoom, if you're on a computer, you can, I don't remember how you do it on the computer, because I'm usually on an iPad when I'm on participants.
You go down to the bottom and hover over participants, and then under participants, there's a little thing that you can say raise hand.
Thank you. And if you're on a tablet, you can also go to the participants panel and click raise hand there. So if you have questions, click the raise hand button, and we will very short order, open up the conversation. I think that's it for housekeeping. We're planning to go for 90 minutes, so relax. I hope you've got your tea. I do. And Karen, why don't you say hi?
Hi.
Hi.
What do you, I mean, there's so many places I can start at such a,
Really, whatever you feel.
such a robust topic.
I know.
Would you want me to just kind of riff like I did yesterday?
Why don't you, what does Michael say, open for 10? Why don't you riff for 5 or riff for 8? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So hi everybody. I'm Karen diMarco. Hi David. I recognize some names here. I've been a nurse for 25 years. 16 years of that was in intensive care and trauma and flight nursing, like helicopters and airplanes and picking people up in one country and shuttling them over back home and that kind of stuff. Lots of adventures. We could go off on that one, like those adventures.
Sometime we should, yes.
One time I was held at gunpoint in Los Mochis, Mexico, picking up a drug lord.
Who are you working for?
I probably shouldn't say the name of the air ambulance company, but
wow.
Just because this particular run was anyway, yeah, picked up a drug lord who was having a heart attack, and he was on, like, it was just the pilot, who's an ex-Marine, my respiratory therapist, and me. And we pull up, land on the tarmac. He's in an ambulance on all of the wrong medications. He should have been on the opposite medications. And the Learjet doors open to a throng of, like, his horde, his entourage or whatever. And it's like Miami Vice guys dressed in like blazers and t-shirts with Uzis pointed at us. And I'm like, okay, if this guy dies, we're getting whacked.
Well, I'm seeing you in like really fancy khakis, like, rayon khakis and bullets strapped around across your chest.
Yeah, no, not exactly that. Like just flight pants. And, I always did want people to picture me. I became a flight nurse because I always wanted people to picture me walking toward them in slow motion with an Aerosmith song playing in the background. It wasn't because I wanted to be a flight nurse. It was just because I wanted people to perceive me as cool. Anyway, sorry, I lost track. So anyway, after 16 years of seeing so many medical errors and just, there was a paper that came out, I think in 2010, a white paper called "To Err is Human" that revealed that the medical system in the United States is the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer, is medical error. And I always had this idea in my head because of what I saw. People with a medical, either if the patient was a medical professional or if they had a medical professional in their family, they always had better outcomes. Lower morbidity, mortality, shorter length of hospital stay. Things just went smoother because they knew to say, that's not right. They knew the standard of care that they deserved or that their family member deserved. They knew how to ask for a second opinion. They knew how to ask the questions. They knew that when a nurse or doctor came into the room and didn't wash their hands, simple things like that keep people in the hospital much longer because they get, a pneumonia or an infection because, somebody didn't wash their hands. And they knew to say, please wash your hands before you touch my father. Please swab that IV port with alcohol before you inject a medication. Just like these little things. Mm. And so I wanted to start a business for people who didn't have a medical professional in their family. If they didn't have a nurse in the family, you should be able to hire one. I mean, the United States Bill of Rights or Constitution guarantees that if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Why? Because the judicial system is so complex and so complicated. There's no way you have a fair shot unless you have somebody who speaks that language. The medical system is just as, if not more complicated and complex, and people revere doctors, so they're just vulnerable. Why isn't if we provide an advocate in the judicial system, why don't we provide one in the medical system? You know, in the judicial system, the risk is fine or freedom. In the medical system, it's injury or death. You know, and people and innocent people who are just vulnerable. Anyway, sorry, I'll step down off my pulpit. So I started a business. I went through a program at the University of Arizona in 2011 to learn what I thought was going to be the legal ins and outs of being a private patient advocate. But that was only 10% of it. What I learned through that program was all about functional medicine, systems biology, fancy terms like epigenetics and nutrigenomics and sociogenomics and all these things that point to root cause of illness, why people get sick in the first place. So conventional medicine model is an algorithm. You know, you go to medical school and you learn algorithms. If symptom A plus symptom B, then give medication C. If that doesn't work, increase dose. If that doesn't work, add medication D. If that doesn't work, surgery. You know, we just keep, you know, you have 7 minutes. You go to the doctor, you have 7 minutes to tell them your symptoms so that they can get to the right algorithm to give you the Band-Aid, to put over the warning light on the dashboard of the car going, meh, 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 hypertension, diabetes, depression, you know, meh, meh, and we just go, okay, shh. Put a Band-Aid over that. We're just not going to look there.
And just add one more prescription to your.
So functional medicine, what the intention behind functional medicine is, why is the light on in the first place? Why is the check engine light on in the first place? Let's look under the hood and see what's wrong with the terrain and bring it back to homeostasis. You know, homeostasis is the dynamic equilibrium of complementary opposites. It's in Apollo 13, you know, keeping the earth in the window, you know, we're always off course 99% of the time, but our temperature control, our pH, acid base balance control, there's so many different things that the body's always going, you know, we're always off course, but we're keeping the earth in the window and it's always trying to go toward homeostasis. And when we get too far off course, we get diseases, you know, depending on the chinks in your armor. Depending on your genetic Achilles heel, one person's diabetes, heart disease, fibromyalgia, or pain is another person's depression, anxiety, cancer, you know, but it all starts upstream with imbalances in the system. So functional medicine is how can we get the system back in balance? How can we support the body to get back to homeostasis?
For me, that homeostasis is like response able too, right? When the system is in balance, then it can respond. It can deal with changes. And then I see what happens with people like my parents who just kept getting more and more conditions, breeding conditions, and then medicines on top of medicines, which would just kind of made it impossible for them. This wasn't happening anymore. They just got more and more solidly stuck or
entrenched
in this mishmash of diagnoses that to me seem so clearly resulting from the medicine as well as from the original condition. And I see now that I'm getting to be this old, getting to be a geriatric patient. I get to read the fine print, you know, the little boxed areas on the package inserts that say for your geriatric patient, because I'm over 65. Lucky me. But it's where was I going with this? I had a point. I don't remember, but we'll get back to it.
Homeostasis.
Yeah, and the ability to, you know, I see when I go into a doctor's office, a Western doctor's office with an issue, I mean, it's truly baffling. I have, for a period in my life, I was prone to staph infections, which would erupt in these giant big boils on my body. And at one point in my life, I had one that a little cyst here there was one here, there was one at the top of the crack of my ass and one on my ankle at the same time. And 2 doctors told me they weren't related. Staph is running through my body and erupting in 3 different places, but it's not related because one's here and one's on my butt and one's on my foot. So yeah, I don't know. For some reason.
So that to me is a beautiful example of your instincts told you that, of course they're related, of course they're related. Your immune system. So there's 3 things that make us sick. Number 1 is our environment. So environmental / physical things. So that's things that get into our body through food, through environmental toxins, through, poisonous lotions or vaccines, there's stuff that enters our body through the environment that can make us sick. Heavy metals. And the other part of that environmental physical is blunt force trauma, right? That can make you sick. You get in an accident, whatever, you get knocked down. And also movement, lack of movement. People are getting sick and inflamed because they're not moving enough. When we don't move, our heart, our cardiovascular system has a pump. Our nervous system doesn't need a pump because electricity, right? But our lymphatic system needs us to move. Our lymphatic system takes all of the junk, all of the corpses that our immune system has killed, the white blood cells and the T cells, everything's doing its thing, and it all gets dumped into the lymphatic system, and it needs your muscles to contract. So when we don't move, our lymph, the corpses, the result of our immune system doing its thing, just sits in our lymphatic system like stagnant pools of goo. When we don't move, we just sit on our butts all day looking at, Netflix or the computer. We have to move. And if we don't, we get sick and inflamed. That's why lack of movement gets. So anyway, that's enough of environmental. So food, environmental, toxins, blunt force trauma, lack of movement. Okay. So that's one thing that makes you sick. The second thing that can make you sick is microbial. Bacteria, funguses, molds, viruses, parasites, anything that you can see under a microscope that makes you sick, microbial. The third thing that makes us sick is psychological. Now, the psychology is a linchpin because your body is freaking amazing. Our immune systems are so powerful. Heavy metals, GMOs, stuff that gets in us from the environment and vaccinations or whatever, our immune system is designed to clear that shit out. Is it okay if I swear on your program? I can try not to. Okay.
Have you met me?
All right. So your immune system is designed to clear that stuff out, and it does a very good job of it all day, every day. Our immune system is designed to get rid of critters. It's very good at it. Why do some people get Lyme disease and it becomes chronic, and some people get Lyme disease and they just get over it? It's psychology. Because an over-engaged psychology, when we're hypervigilant all the time, on red alert every day, what do people think of me? What is my number in the bank account? What is my number on the scale? What is my relationship? Like a hypervigilance all day long, every day, an over-engaged psychology. The thing thinks you're running from a tiger all day long, or there's a storm coming or a famine and we better go get food. So we don't want to reproduce. I'm not going to help you have a baby. We don't want to fight the microbials, and we don't want to detoxify right now because we have to get rid of this tiger, all this. So an overengaged psychology will divert energy away from the immune system that does this, that gets rid of the heavy metals and the toxicity, that gets rid of the microbials.
And restores balance.
So we are on red alert all day, every day, and it's white noise. We don't even know how stressed we are. Ding, bing, brrr. This thing, every time this thing goes off, it's a little stress response. It's a little adrenaline. It's a little bit of energy diverted away from the immune system in detoxification.
And sometimes when it's not going off, I go look for it. I go look for the little red notification buttons or something to prove that there's still engagement going on in my life or something.
Loneliness kills more people than smoking and obesity. That's proven. There's research that shows that. Loneliness kills more people than smoking and obesity.
So the psychology part is...
Well, the other part of the psychology part, not only does it prevent 1 and 2 from doing its thing, but an over-engaged psychology, a chronically engaged stress response will cause diabetes, will cause obesity, will cause cancer. If you're living your life in fear, look at Anita Moorjani's story. She got cancer because she was so afraid of getting cancer. And when she had her near-death experience and saw, oh, I don't have to be afraid, I can't die, her cancer just went away. And I'm not saying all that stuff to scare anybody. It's just to bring light to the fact that our bodies are so amazing. So the whole premise of this program is simplicity, right? That's not to add more complexity. There's 3 things that make us sick, and this is the thing that's the linchpin and is what keeps people from recovering, from healing, from detoxifying, and from getting sick. So that's really, to me, as you were on the call yesterday, Sue, the foundation for our health is to understand our experience, and we don't have to be afraid of it. We can't die. Now that's kind of a nebulous spiritual conversation that we can have if you choose to go there. But knowing that you're fundamentally okay, that nothing can really hurt you, that you are who you truly are is unfuckwithable. That's the only thing you need to see. And it doesn't mean you're not going to get sick. It doesn't mean you're not going to have pain, but you can be healed through seeing that and not be cured.
Was there more on the psychology? Because if there's more, I want to hear it. If not,
Well, there might be, but I'm going to stop for now because I feel like I've been talking for a long time.
So the thing about the psychology is really what Simplify Your Life is all about. And it's very personal for me, right? That as I'm developing this book, which started out as memoir, because my daughter, who I think is here with us, hi, Rosie.
That's my middle name. Hi, Rose.
Asked me for everything, all my recipes, all my how-tos, everything, like a legacy mom. I want all of this. So I started collecting content, and then it became a memoir, and I started doing this archaeological dig into my life and my adventures and my traumas and the rapes and the whatever, and why am I doing it for what? And out of that, I put it aside for a while and just had more experience of my life. And in my own personal journey, I have not spent much time in the sunshine. I've been a dark kind of gal for a lot of time. And I had some investment in this darkness and my gloom and my loneliness and my whatevers. And in the last couple of years, I've been finding that, yes, in fact, it's true that the sun is shining, even if all I choose to see is black clouds, and that I really do like the feeling of the sun on me, and I bask in it. And the more I do that, the more neutral, the more I approach neutrality to the goings on in my life. And that's everything from the madman in the White House to my health. It's everything. And to be able to be presenced and responsible despite what's going on, despite the diagnosis or the prognosis, makes me, that's the neutrality that allows me to be the person I'd rather be, I'd like to be, that I know I am, rather than the person I've been practicing being for decades. She's not very helpful. So this is a stupid example maybe, I don't care. When I live in California and I eat avocados, and when I cut into an avocado and it's perfect, when it's perfect inside, I am pleased. I am happy. My meal is going to be delicious. I got a great avocado. I live in California. I eat locally. Yay. When I cut into an avocado and it's a dud avocado.
I'm taking you on a walk with me to refresh my coffee. Keep
Please
asking.
do. I can't do that on this call, so I'm just going to have to make tea last. I have to carry my iMac with me to the other room. So when I open a dudicado and it's brown and gray and disgusting inside, I feel bad about myself. I feel like I failed it somehow. And I will tell you that I take that, I can put that kind of weight on my health. If I can't fix it, if I can't power through it, if these supplements or this practice or this thing that that doctor told me to do doesn't work, I carry that weight as a failure. I can carry that weight as a failure, and then I feel even sicker. So I should have muted you, Karen.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, so that's there's a lot that I want to say about that neutrality thing, but I want to we can come back to that when we open the conversation, because really that's kind of the question I'm asking you is where do you just feel the weight descend upon you, and you don't feel like you feel like your competence is gone, and you become afraid instead of empowered in the conversation. And how do you get grounded again? How do you get responsible when when you're feeling that weight? So
well, from what I've seen, the body is always on our side. Always. Even Anita Morjani in multi-system organ failure, in a coma, they're about to discontinue life support. She's riddled with lymphoma and tumors. It's still on her side. It's still trying to point her home. Take something like hypothyroidism. It's endemic. Everybody's got hypothyroidism, right? Okay. So follow me here. Here's a little bit of, I'm going to geek out. So one of the amino acids one of the building blocks of adrenaline, so epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, the gas pedal of your nervous system, one of the amino acid building blocks of adrenaline is tyrosine. Okay? Tyrosine is also involved in making T3, your thyroid hormone. Now, if you're on red alert all the time, if you're hypervigilant about symptoms, what do people think of me? Oh my gosh, my kids, I got to keep up with cultural, religious, familial constructs, blah, blah, blah. All day long, every day, you're checking boxes for other people. You're saying yes when you mean no. You're saying no when you mean yes, blah, blah, blah. So that your body doesn't distinguish between running from a tiger or fighting the elements or surviving a famine, between your hypervigilance for what people think of you or whatever you're hypervigilant for. Everyone has their own thing. So that sets off a stress response. Your body prioritizes tyrosine for adrenaline because, of course, it's going to help you run from the tiger to save your ass instead of making thyroid hormone, right? So that gets diverted toward the stress response. There's less available to make thyroid hormone. And this is how it's still on your side. Not only is it trying to save your ass, but it's setting you up to be tired and rest when the famine is over, when the chase is over. What does hypothyroidism do to us? It makes us tired. It kills our appetite. It makes us heavy. It makes us want to rest after the event, after the stress response. But what do? We go to the doctor because we're feeling tired and sluggish, and we don't know why, because we can't hear the noise of our own thinking. It's white noise because we become so accustomed to just living like that. But we don't like how we feel because we're tired and sluggish and things aren't working exactly right. Your body wants you to rest. No, nature. Something's wrong. You're failing me. I'm going to go to the doctor and I'm going to get a thyroid medication to fill the bucket so that I can keep going, so that I can keep stressing myself out. Instead of listening to the body that's naturally telling you, shh. Here's another one. Oh, you can go ahead.
Well, so I think I'm just going to tell this little story, and then I want to hear your other one. So I went to I did a Simplify Your Life talk at a pain management group that my doctor runs, one of my doctors runs. And one of the women in the group had some kind of big accident and had a bunch of surgeries and she could only look at when she gets it all back, when she gets all the function back, she's going to be okay. And until then, she's in some kind of waiting mode where there is no okay, there's a limbo. And until she gets all her function back and is back to where she was before this trauma happened in her body, and the amount of attachment she has to that idea, I think, is going to act just the same way in terms of her healing. I think it's what that is it's just like diverting the healing process or putting obstacles in front of it.
Yeah, hypervigilance about symptoms. So, you were on the call yesterday. John and I did a research study in 2017 that was based on our own healing and experience with chronic fatigue. Now, my diagnosis was chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, suicidal ideation, depression, ADD. I had chronic Lyme disease. I was a mess. But I hid it. I didn't want anybody to know that I was weak. But it was when I couldn't hide it anymore and I had become so sick that I couldn't keep up with all the things, all the box checking. Got to be thin, got to be pretty, got to be smart, got to be witty. Check, check, check all day long, every day. Hypervigilant for what people thought about me. The hypervigilance was living in a stress response. If I could show you, you asked me a question yesterday, Sue. I think I can find this and share my screen. Neurotransmitters in you. Here's what a neurotransmitter test looks like. I don't want to take up too much time trying to find it. But I got certified in neuroadrenal testing. Everything's in the toilet. And where in the past I would go, oh, I got to fix that. All right, here it kind of just came up. Let's see if my test is on here. Oh, yeah, here it is. Can I share my screen?
Okay. And I also want to make sure to get you to say the name of Anita Moorjani's book that I can't think of right now.
Dying to be me.
Dying to be me, yes. I haven't read it yet, but that's the woman Karen was talking about before. Okay,
so can you see this pretty well?
Yeah.
All right, so your nervous system has a gas pedal and a brake. So, and there's overlap of all neurotransmitters and hormones because they, depending on where the receptor is, they have different functions. But for the purposes of this, we're just going to call epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, dopac. This is the gas pedal. The brake is serotonin, GABA. These are the brakes. Okay. So for me, everything was in the red low. Everything should be between these two numbers. So everything's really, really low. And my worst symptom, so glutamate is an immune indicator. My immune system's in the toilet. PEA, my worst symptom was I had dementia. So histamine also is another immune indicator in the toilet. PEA, responsible for focus, concentration, and short-term memory. This is why I had dementia.
Wow.
Cortisol. This is a phase 3 adrenal fatigue. This takes 14 years of chronic stress to get to this thing. So I woke up in the morning and I dragged myself out of bed and I dragged myself through my day. And then around 4:00 p.m., I had just enough energy to make dinner and help kids with homework. And I felt a little bit normal in the evening time before I went to bed. But whereas in the past, I used to go, oh, supplement, amino acids. I can bring all these things up, fix it, so I can be motivated and happier and whatever. Now I look at a test like this, and this answers your question I didn't get to answer yesterday. I don't test anymore until I'm absolutely certain and have worked with somebody for a while. Because if somebody looks at that test and goes, oh, there's somewhere for me to get, there's something for me to fix, there's somewhere for me to get to, that's going to make it worse. I look at that test now and I go, oh, I'm not supposed to be motivated right now. I'm supposed to be tired and forgetful right now.
Mm.
That's nature's signature of what is supposed to be. And and it's trying to slow me down. I'm not motivated because I'm supposed to be resting. We make this standard of how fast and how hard and how much we should operate at. We're not meant to operate at that level. Bing, bing, brrr. You know how much this takes out of us all day long, every day? This isn't inhuman. We're not supposed to operate at that level. We're human beings and we haven't evolved. Our genes, our genetic, our bodily structure, our energetic system has not evolved to handle this. We're supposed to rest. We're supposed to give ourselves a break. We're not supposed to be motivated sometimes. So if somebody gets that, I'll do their test and we can gently work with things. I take supplements. You know, I supplement, I like to play with myself. But it comes from a foundation of, oh, my body's on my side. It's not my job to fix it. Here's another slide. I'll give you one more because it's pretty. People think that it's their job to fix their health, to do nature's job. If only I could get back all the years I spent trying to extend my life with supplements. And like, I was like one of those naturopaths you see at Whole Foods, you know, with their pill boxes and like, just like all day long, every day. Oh, it's time to take my supplements, like trying to do nature's job. And that hypervigilance about our health makes us sick.
I think that aging is a really sweet and tender area to look at this stuff too, because I think, in fact, I am slowing down. I can't do as much, even though I think I should. And I drive myself bats. Well, I don't drive myself bats. I add weight to that because I'm attached to this image of myself as a little Energizer bunny. And in fact, I'm not only not that, but I'm really not interested in pushing myself that hard anymore. If only I wasn't attached to my image of it, of what I think that means about me, you know. And there's that's where the psychology part makes it hard for me to enjoy the downtime. It's happening more and more, but I'm resisting it. And that part, but I'd like for that to go as quickly as possible so I could, you know, get the benefit of those moments.
If I were to tell you that we could go into a room and you could find and experience your greatest level of peace and well-being right here, right now, would you want to go there?
That question makes me feel like I'm already there.
Sharon, you in?
Yeah, you want to unmute yourself? Or you want me to do it?
Well, yeah, I actually have a question for Karen based on, and not that I'm asking you to, you know, become my nurse, although that would be wonderful.
Rose.
We'll
go.
Come in, okay. I've just, after dealing with the kind of subclinical low thyroid for years, as diagnosed by a practitioner many moons ago, and I'm tired all the time and low immune system. Not awful, but enough. Now my numbers are at the level where my doctor is looking at it going, oh, we really need to address your thyroid. And so this is all very recent. I am not a pusher. I am like Ms. I teach meditation. I have very little stress in my life right now, other than, you know, I'd like to be working and bringing in a little more income, but like I'm not chronically stressed, and I've worked enough with, not that I'm perfect, but, you know, I've worked enough with my mind, you know, through inquiry processes, through, you know, spiritual and emotional healing, through learning about the 3 principles, which I think maybe is a common thread here. I'm not sure. And so I'm not like, I've gotten very good at like when my mind starts to go, like learning how to walk into that other room. Mm-hmm. And yet now my thyroid is just like totally wonky wonk. So I don't know what other factors, you know, might be at play. It might be age. It might be environment. I don't know. So I'm just curious if there are other like things that are like flags for you or notes of interest if it isn't about the, always being on the fight or flight and the, always responding to, I don't keep notifications on, text, phone, that's about it.
Yeah, well, good for you.
Yeah.
I spoke of one foundational piece of hypothyroidism.
Right.
It's multifactorial. I have no idea.
Yeah.
If we had a conversation, maybe we could find it.
Right.
And a lot of people, there's an interesting study done. I don't know, some impressive Ivy League institution, but they did a study with executive assistants. I think they did 40 executive assistants, 40 or 60. They divided them into two groups. One group was in kind of a white noise room, like a hospital setting or a busy office setting, just goings on in the background. And one group was in a room with a closed door that was quiet. They gave both groups the same amount of work, like 30 minutes of work and one impossible task. They assigned them all this impossible task. When the time was up, one of the groups, their adrenaline levels was twice the amount of the other group. They spent 60% less time trying to work at the impossible task before they gave up. They made less ergonomic corrections, so less self-care. And both groups reported the same amount of stress. So which group do you think it was that had higher adrenaline levels, made less ergonomic corrections, and attempted the impossible task?
The quiet room?
The white noise, yeah. It was the group in the white noise. But the scary thing is they both reported the same amount of stress. So there's so much that goes around the white noise of our thinking. And the reason I'm saying that, Sharon, is because when I was so sick, when I people who've heard me speak before, know that I refer to it as my puddle of snot and tears moment. Surrendered in a puddle of snot and tears at the floor of my master bedroom closet because I saw for the first time that neurotransmitter test I just showed you. And the doctor who was mentoring me in that, learning how to read them and to correct them, he said most people with a test that the outcome is much better than this is they're suicidal. And they can't get out of bed and, whatever. You're driving yourself. But, at that point, I was like, when my mentor met me, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Whatever. You wouldn't know it because I hid it. Because I didn't see what was stressing me out. I didn't see the cognitive dissonance that I was living in. Cognitive dissonance meaning your outside behaviors don't match your internal beliefs and values. So I was saying yes when I wanted to say no. I was saying no when I wanted to say yes. I was maintaining this all go, no quit, never let them see you sweat, all American girl image, because I didn't want people to not like me or to be disappointed at me. I wanted people to picture me walking toward them in slow motion with an Aerosmith song playing in the background in an orange flight suit. I became a nurse because my mom told me to. But that was how I lived. It was white noise. I didn't hear it until I saw that test and went, oh. And it came down to a loud roar that I could hear.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what it is. It's multifactorial. Sounds like you're doing all these, wonderful things. It could be environmental. It could be microbial. It could be psychological. Don't know. It's one of those things.
Right.
But I know what it was for me and for so many people. They don't hear their own fight or flight. They don't see what's causing it.
Yeah. And the one piece that is for all my self-care, it's actually my business, is Heart of Self-Care. For all of that, the thing that I am the least good with is movement. and exercise. So who knows, how much that plays in. I'm not giving my engine a good,
Yeah. Well, for John L. Macadam, who I did the study with, his white noise that he couldn't hear was his red alert for his symptoms. It was all like every day, like if he had to go out in the sun because he had such bad reaction to the sun, he would be in his head planning, okay, tomorrow I have to go out in the sun. And that means, well, okay, and then I'm going to get tired and whatever. And so the next day I better pace myself. But he was always future thinking. And that little bit of, that one thing, he was constantly on red alert and trying to future think and prepare to go out in the sun. And that noise in his head was keeping him in a red alert stress response and keeping him sick. Yeah. So his red alert for his symptoms is what he thought was keeping him safe was the thing that was keeping him sick. For me, it was my red alert about what people thought of me.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
So I just am going to do a little housekeeping moment and say that we have plenty of time for conversation. Everyone who doesn't have their video on, you're welcome to turn your camera on and let us see your faces. And hi, Gretchen. And if you can raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself and jump in with a question or a comment if you like, although it's easier if you're on video if you do that so we don't jump. Does anyone want to chime in?
What were we talking about, Sue, before? You were talking about aging and.
Yeah. So the neutrality bit and the aging thing. So that's it's just so huge. But one thing I'm seeing is that for a few years, I guess not too long ago, many of my peers started to retire. People my age, and I people who had jobs and pensions and retirement plans, things like that I, as a solopreneur don't have. And I always thought, well, I'm just not going to retire because, well, one, I don't have a pot of money to do that with, and two, this is what I do. So I've been doing what I do. And dealing with all the other things that are going on in my life and my health. But now I'm noticing that my identity struggle that it is unfolding in that I'm really not inclined to push myself so hard, but I'm having a bunch of shoulds about that. I'm having a bunch of shoulds about that, about my relevance, my income earning ability, my I'm just reading Rose's comment about white noise. I'd love for you to jump in, honey. That's my daughter. I don't want to tell your story, but I have a kid who works nights and now has to sleep during the day when the rest of the world is up and about. And it's really a weird situation.
I did that for years. I worked night shift.
Rosie, why don't you unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about your.
I think I am. Can you guys?
Oh, yay! Good.
Yeah. Working nights really does throw you off. I mean, Karen, I guess you would know. Me and my husband both work nights, and it kind of almost depresses you. And I feel odd being out in the day, like during the daylight. And that alone, I think, really messes with your psyche in that way. And especially your diet gets thrown off, and sleeping during the day. I only sleep about 5 hours now, which is totally not enough. So yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah. Is it 5 days a week you work nights?
That's correct. I work 5 days a week.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of things that you could do to help. I mean, probably not for this call, but I'm happy to talk to you. I worked night shift for probably at least 12 of the 16 years I was in hospitals. They're really cool people that work nights. That's one benefit, is like the people who tend to gravitate toward working nights are like the vampires of society.
Did you work 12-hour shifts there?
I did. I worked 12 to sometimes 16 hours. I'd work 3 p.m. to 7 a.m.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Very rough.
Yeah. And yeah, hospital work. And what kind of work do you do?
I'm a technician for the airport. So I do mechanical work at night, but luckily there's a lot of downtime as well. So it's not all go, 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 but I mean, it can be.
Yeah. But, you know, doing something in a routine, but I hear you about being out in the day is kind of depressing because there's a heaviness behind your eyes. And
oh, yes.
Yeah, there's always this heaviness behind your eyes when you get out in the sunshine and there's something off. I remember that feeling, but there's a lot of things you can do to support your body, to kind of put it on track so that you don't, night shift workers, I don't know how long you're planning on doing it, but it's it could be hard, and there's a lot you can do to kind of buffer the impact that it has.
What kinds of things can you say briefly?
Well, there's, first of all, there's some testing you could do to see how it's impacting your body, but staying up all night and sleeping during the day and going against our circadian rhythm tends to shut down detoxification pathways. That's why, night shift workers, their lifespans are less, and their lifespans are shorter because it ages you quicker and it shuts down your detoxification pathways. So what you can do is some biohacking that stimulates your detoxification pathways to work how they should work. So what that means is most supplements out there are to fill the bucket. So like glutathione is your major antioxidant of your body. It's like, it's the thing that detoxifies. So there's a lot of glutathione supplements out there that aren't really effective. It has to be, but we try to fill the glutathione bucket. When you biohack, when you take certain kinds of supplements to reawaken the pathways that start to shut down when we're about 25, start to shut down faster when we work night shift, you stimulate your own detoxification pathways to make more glutathione instead of filling the bucket with more. You stimulate your own pathways to more efficiently make neurotransmitters, hormones, and vitamins that you need instead of filling the bucket with them. I have a pretty incredible photo. Let me see if I can find it. This is a nurse who went through the same program that I did. Let me see if I can find this photo. Yeah, here I have it. So there's this nurse who went through the same program that I did, but she specializes in people with cancer, especially people who don't want to go through, either they want to go through conventional treatment with an integrative approach. So they'll go through chemotherapy or radiation or surgery, but they also bring in some integrative therapies too. She also deals with people who don't want to go through conventional medicine treatment and they just want to try alternative therapies and, combination of both. So, but her focus is cancer. So she had a woman come to her. I can't remember what kind of hair. Wait. 7 years ago, she was diagnosed with cancer, did not get chemo, just did the biohacking. Within a year, all the markers for cancer were gone. She's been cancer-free ever since. So this is her 7 years ago. Wow. When she got a cancer diagnosis. This is her today.
Wow. Wow.
So that's what biohacking does, and stimulating your detoxification pathways that kind of start to go dormant when you're 25.
So that's supplements that what's the word? That will make it possible for the body to create the supplements that the elements that have taken a hit. Right.
Like since I started taking them, what I noticed, because I like to play with myself, I have, I always test stuff before I recommend it to other people or my clients. What I've noticed after doing this biohack for 4 weeks is that I wake up in the morning. The biggest thing, you have to really know what it's going to do for you, you have to be on it for 30 days per decade of your life. Okay. So I'm going to be 45 in a couple of days. The biggest thing I've noticed after being on it for 4 weeks is I wake up in the morning and I don't hit the snooze button anymore. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and it's like, ding, which is incredible. Like and I can go to yoga at 6 a.m. and I'm not tired. I don't drag myself out of bed. And it's like, for me, that alone is a miracle. It's like awesome to wake up in the morning and be like awake. I wake up with the sun and feel awake. And then that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock lull I used to get, I don't get that anymore. So that's what I've noticed so far. I have more energy. And it feels really good. I don't know how I got off on that topic. But, because Rose. So there's things that you can do to support your body to not be as impacted by the shift work.
All right, I'll definitely look into that because anything will help at this point. I mean, there's pros and cons, but definitely I am tired all the time. So
Yeah. Well, you're doing what you need to do though, and we do what we need to do, but there's things you can do to support the system. So tell your mom, get my number or my email from your mom.
I will happily. Anybody else?
Yeah, me.
Gretchen. Hi, Gretchen.
Hi. I'm sorry I was late. I had to take my car in and walk back. So that's, life happens.
Yeah.
I really love the question, what is my red alert? What keeps me blah, 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 blah. And, I've had numerous times in my life where, to put it mildly. And also, I understand Sue's comment about just don't have the desire to push myself as hard as I used to. And I turned 80 in December and wondering what's next, and what I realize is what's next is the moment. And each moment builds into a day, and each day that's it. That I don't have to figure it out, and maybe that'll help me let go of some of the shoulds that I also have. I should be doing more. I should be doing. I should, or I shouldn't be, or all kinds of stuff. So. I love the question, what is my red alert? I just think that's such a good question. And that pushing myself is just a crazy notion that I have at times. That even if I push myself, it's still what's in the next moment that shows up. That's all there is.
Well,
the next moment.
My brother, Mike, I have 3 older brothers, and my middle brother, Mike, was always setting the curve. So he would come home from high school, and I set the curve in AP biology. I set the curve in AP calculus. And what that means is Mike would always be like, there was a test and he got the highest score. So if the highest score was 100%, but it was such a challenging test that the highest score was 90%, then that was the new A+. So Mike set the curve all the time, not just in school, but in how he looked and his athleticism, and it was freaking photographic memory, and just like the guy. Yeah, like he now he's a surgeon. He's a microvascular facial plastic surgeon. So he, like, people who half their face has been eaten away by cancer, he'll like make them a new tongue by taking a piece of stomach muscle and like spending all day in a microscope sewing capillaries and nerves together or whatever, and makes them a new tongue that works perfectly. And then he goes around the world lecturing how to do this because he's figured out how to do a surgery that usually took 8 surgeries in 2. So this is Mike. And this is who I had to live up to, like growing up. But what I saw about Mike, when I was actually reading this book called Sapiens, have you heard of this book? It's very interesting. So Sapiens.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a really cool book. I recommend the audiobook because it's like this thick and I can imagine reading it. But the book talks about how we're taught in school that it went Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and those died off, and then it was Homo sapiens. Like, we're kind of taught that in school. But the book says, no, that's not true. There were actually like at least 13 that we know, species of the genus Homo. There were all different ones, like, that existed all at the same time. And what was it that made Homo sapiens? We're the last of our species. We killed them all. Exactly. But what gave us the ability to kill them all? So this is what the book talks about. So if you look at other primates, like orangutans, chimpanzees, gorillas, etc., they don't exist in troops greater than like 50, 75. They can't exist peacefully in troops greater than 50 or 75. There's like too many alphas, there's infighting, then the families break apart and they make more troops. Well, if you look at the fossil record, that's the same for all the different Homo species, all the little different Homos. They didn't exist in large troops except for Homo sapiens. Around 70,000 years ago, something happened. Something happened to our brains, this prefrontal cortex thing that allowed us to exist peacefully in numbers greater than 100 to a million, millions. And it was our ability. So this is what the book, I'm not saying this is absolute truth, but it sounds true to me. It's our ability to believe in myth. So we could unite peacefully under the myth of the sun god. We could unite peacefully under that a piece of paper is worth $1. We all can believe in that myth, that this piece of paper is worth $1. We can all unite peacefully that there's an invisible line in the land that says, because you live over there, you're a citizen of Canada. And because I live over here, I'm a citizen of the United States. And there's so much meaning behind that thought construct. It feels different to be a Canadian than it does to be, an American.
Or you can step foot on somebody's land and claim it for your own.
Yeah, so myth, right? There's all these myths. Curves are myth. We're comparing ourselves. So there's a curve for how thin you should be. There's a curve for how active you should be. There's a curve for, we're setting curves all the time. We're bumping up against societal curves and social curves and religious curves. And there's curves and they're myth. That Mike set the curve in AP biology doesn't mean he's smarter than me. He puts his shoes on the wrong feet. But he's good in that. We set the curve when we compare ourselves to our former self.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting, because what's coming to me right now is the whole idea about interventions, right? I've been, physical interventions, like replacing a knee. I've been offered that as something to consider, or replacing a tooth that I lost, or getting another implant in my jaw, or I don't know, a cosmetic intervention to make my face, to make myself look younger. Most of those ideas seem ridiculous to me. I mean, I feel like the idea of opening up my knee and putting in a new joint in there seems like a lot to do. Even, I have a knee that's not in good shape and it's not going to get better. There's tissue that's, meniscus tissue that's gone shredded. So they can replace it, but what happens then? And how well will I recover? And will I get from it what I'm looking for, which is what the gal in the pain group wanted. I want it back. I want my old knee back. I want to be able to sit cross-legged. I want to be able to sit with my, with my knees under me. I want to be able to squat and bend and I don't know that the intervention will get me what I want, and what problems will it bring with it. So those kinds of questions and the curves, or the societal
standard.
The societal standard and the medical standard.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I walk into a surgeon's office, I have to be really grounded in myself, not to get overwhelmed, not to just collapse.
Right on me.
Where do you live, Sue?
I'm in Sonoma County, Northern California.
It's better.
Hello.
I know there's an RNPA. If you ever want like an RNPA to go to it, it's an amazing experience to go to a doctor's appointment with somebody like me.
Oh, really? Where are you thinking? Like near?
I could even come up for one, but just to have somebody with you that knows the questions to ask and has done the research before. But anyway, forget that for now.
Yeah.
But it's standards. I mean, look at the curves we have for weight. What is considered beautiful throughout history has changed, so it can't be true. And even what's true in Africa, what's true for beauty, a beautiful weight or a beautiful woman in Africa is completely different than what it is in the West. So it can't be true. We're bumping up against curves all the time. We're bumping up against our own made up standards or society's made up standards. And when we bump up against those and we compare ourselves to them, we suffer. I haven't told anyone this yet, I don't think. I haven't stepped on a scale voluntarily in about 35 years because I had a neurotic response to it. I'd see a number on a scale and I would just trip on what that meant about me and I was too big and too fat and blah, blah, and my self-image couldn't fit through a door. So I just I would turn down every doctor's request to step on the scale at the beginning of an appointment. I've never done it. My doctors, the medical assistants, they know it. They walk me right past the scale. They know I'm going to say no. And I haven't weighed myself except when I was in intensive care. I was weighed. I was not offered to be weighed, so I was weighed. The other day, I was walking into one of my doctor's visits, and I was curious about my weight because my appetite's really been iffy. I haven't been eating much at all, and I just had this thought of I wonder what I weigh, and maybe it'll be a good thing to know, because if I am dropping weight, maybe it'd be good to have a marker. And I walked into the doctor's visit and she's walking right past the scale and I'm going, wait, no, let's take a weight. And she had to pick herself up off the floor and meet me at the scale. And that whole construct was gone. But I carried that with me as a thing, a real thing that existed. I am neurotic about a scale, so I will never get on a scale again. Fuck you, you can't make me. And that just went away. Yes. Awesome.
And now I know what I weighed last week.
Yeah, but so for me, that applies to, my weight story and my eating disorder story, just like.
No, I don't.
Well, I talked about it yesterday, how part of my red alert for what people thought of me involved so some of my deepest scars from my childhood were from being left behind, from feeling not worthy enough to hang around my big brothers, who were my heroes and my friends. So I made up, because this is genetically hardwired. This is hardwired into us. So we shouldn't beat ourselves up for wanting approval, because it's hardwired into us for our survival. You don't want to get kicked out. You don't want Ankh to not like you, because you might get kicked out of the tribe. So you got to be a good basket weaver. You got to be a good hunter. You got to be a good gatherer, because if Ankh kicks you out of the tribe, you'll get eaten by wolves. you'll die from exposure.
Yeah.
So that's hardwired into us for our survival, but we don't live in tribes anymore. We don't have to hunt. We don't have to think, and so that need for approval has been bastardized. So for me, it looked like if I actually felt like I would die if I got left behind. And in order for me, I made up to not get left behind, people have to like me. And then I made up, if people need to like me through my observation growing up, I have to be thin. I have to be pretty. I have to be smart. I have to be funny. I have to whatever. So in order to not get left behind, people had to like me. In order for people to like me, I have to be all these things. And the biggest one of the biggest ones for me is I have to be thin. That was of a high value in my family. You have to be thin and athletic and fit. So around the age of 11, when I was a gymnast, but I was built like a brick shit house. And because I was very muscly and I was just like a square.
SpongeBob Karen.
And my brother and my mom, the meal was baked chicken, buttered noodles, and salad. I remember the day it started and I remember the day it ended. And I reached for another piece of chicken and my mother and my brother kind of looked at each other like they'd been talking about something. And my mom said, Karen, you're going into junior high school. I'm 11 years old. You're going into junior high school. And I'm sorry, I have to interject. My mom was protecting me. My mom was doing her best to protect me. I'm not saying my mom was evil, but she was doing what she knew how to do. You're going into junior high school. You might want to think about losing some weight. My brother says, yeah, Care, what do you weigh? Like 110? I really weighed 125 because I was so muscular. But my brother thinks I weigh 110. I'm not hiding it well enough. Anyway, took the baked chicken and I ate it anyway in defiance. And I went upstairs after dinner and I put on my running shoes and I started running around and around and around the yard. And every 10 laps, I'd go upstairs and weigh myself. This shit works. And I round and around. I didn't stop running for 60 days. And I got so skinny, people were worried about me. And that's when the anorexia took hold. And then after that, I broke my ankle in gymnastics and I couldn't run and I couldn't do all that. So I started gaining weight and then I panicked and I started sticking my fingers down my throat. And that lasted until it almost killed me a couple times. So I couldn't get too low on the scale because that might kill me. I can't get too high because then people won't like me. So I had this white knuckle control over my eating disorders for all of my life. And Gretchen, the red alert. All day, every day, before my feet even hit the ground in the morning, what's the scale going to say about my value today?
11-year-oldness.
11-year-old to 37, the puddle of snot and tears moment when I was like, people are just not going to like me. People might leave me and I might end up alone. My husband will divorce me. My kids won't like me and my parents will disown me. I'm just going to be that mom. I'm just going to be that wife. I might blow up like a balloon and nobody will like me. I don't give a fuck. I can't do this anymore. And I actually thought people were going to leave me and I would die. I actually thought that. But nothing changed. Nothing of my outside circumstances changed, but everything in my life changed. I got my health back and it was 3 weeks later when I was like, oh my God, I haven't even thought about food. In 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks of my life, it was just all like, the scale for you, but just gone. Because the linchpin, I'm not okay if people don't like me. When that was gone, the downstream effects, my Lyme disease symptoms all went away, my chronic fatigue, my chronic pain, everything just gone. Now, I'm not saying my life has been perfect and I haven't gotten sick and I haven't had pain. Actually, I keep seeing it on a deeper level. I had a shoulder thing. A couple of years ago, I injured my shoulder and I did everything because I couldn't do a chaturanga in yoga. Couldn't do a chaturanga. I can't go to yoga? And then I tried, every kind, acupuncture, myofascial release, Swedish, Thai, every kind of massage I could try. I finally went down to San Diego. A friend of mine does a Rolf technique, Rolfing. I'm like, this is going to work. And it did. It worked for about an hour, and I took him to lunch, and I could do a chaturanga, and I was so excited. I'm like, yes. And then at lunch, I'm paying for the tab, and I'm like, huh. He's like, what? I'm like, well, I mean, you were standing on me for 90 minutes. It's probably going to be angry, right? And he's like, no, that thing let go. You shouldn't have any trouble with it. I'm like, huh, okay. By the time I got back to his house to drop him off, it was worse. It was worse than it was when I got there. And I'm like, I mean, this was months of me trying to get this better. He's like, if that came back, it's a tear, it's an injury. You're going to have to get surgery. There's something wrong there. And I'm like, all right, I guess I can't do yoga now. I'll start running again or do something else. And I don't have time to go to a doctor and get an MRI for surgery this week. So that's going to be in a month. I don't even want to think about it. And I stopped thinking about it. I stopped the chronic red alert about my shoulder pain because I had this image of myself as a yogi and I have to fix this so I can go back to yoga. And in 2 weeks, the pain was gone. My red alert about the pain was what was keeping my system inflamed and keeping my shoulder free. That's my theory, but I can't explain it any other way. Same thing with my back. You know, I had wicked back pain as a nurse, and I never wanted an MRI. I didn't even want to look in there because I'm so afraid that some doctor, like most of my friends nurses who eventually have to get back surgery, I don't even want to look under the hood. And when I stopped thinking about it, it went away. And I'm not saying I don't have back pain. Like, I still have back pain. I still get shoulder pain every once in a while. But when you focus on anything, whether it's pain or fatigue or skin or whatever, and you shrink the container around it, it's like putting a drop of food coloring in a thimble versus, life is a sexually transmitted terminal condition. It's going to get pain. We're going to have symptoms. We're going to get tired. We're going to get knocks. But when you kind of just go, oh, the container is so much bigger for it. It doesn't mean you don't experience pain or symptoms, but they're not as concentrated when you're trying to fix them and get rid of them.
It's really interesting I heard that story about the chicken before, and to hear it again today. Because for some of us, or for me anyway, in my case, it's not so clear cut. I got some big, powerful messages around that time in my life. When I got my period for the first time, my mother, who was doing the best she could, well, she dug out an ancient satin menstrual pad holding belt that actually had shoulder straps and a thing that buttoned around the waist, and then like garters for stockings to clip the maxi pad to. But before she handed it to me, she hauled off and smacked me across the face because her mother did it to her. Because now I'm a woman, and life is going to be hard. Life is suffering. Now you can bear a child, so get ready. And that mantle was placed on my shoulders, and I lived into it. I lived into it, but much more diffusely, right? I don't have a clear set of symptoms that I can relate to that. For me, it's more diffuse, which makes my path of letting go of all of that long and fruitful, and have these moments of unfolding and letting go that come when they come. I'm a dancer, and I rarely dance anymore because of the knee pain, and I have moments where that's perfectly okay. I don't have that attachment to it so much anymore, but I still have the pain and loss of function. So the unfolding is happening in its slow ass time. And Karen, I will be following up. I want to talk to you about maybe doing some work together, because I'm feeling like it's a good time for me to take another look under the hood. I've done some investigation before, and I think it's maybe a time to look again and see what I can do so that my relationship with my body this next season or seasons, is got more ease and less the opposite of ease.
Have you ever experienced home? Have you ever experienced the part of you that is unfuckwithable?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have 9 minutes.
We do.
Well, for anyone who wants to stay on, because do you want me to just do give everybody a little taste of home?
Well, yeah.
It might go over a couple minutes, and if people have to leave, that's fine.
Okay.
But I was going there before, and Rose said, yeah, I guess I'll go. But if we could turn this room into a room where we could all experience who we are before our age, before our ailments. Would you like to go there? Yeah. If you don't like to go there, because some people want to cling to them, then you can leave the call. But for anybody who wants to stay and see who they really are. But before we go into the room, we have to remove our minds. And what makes up part of our mind is our past. So it's like when you go into a yoga or meditation room, they have like those shoe racks with the baskets. So we're going to put our past in the basket before we go into the room. Everything we call ourselves. I'm a woman. I'm Italian. I'm Catholic. I'm American. I'm a man. I'm English. I speak this language. All of our photo albums, all of our trauma, all those things that those people did to us, we're putting it in the basket. We're not taking it in the room with us. All of our triumphs, all of the things we like about ourselves even, because that comes from what we know about ourselves in the past. Our creativity. I'm a good writer. I'm a good dancer. I'm a good friend. Just for now. Just for now. We're going to put our past in the basket. And the next thing we're going to put in the basket, beside our shoes and our clothes and our hair color and our eye color and our gender and our nationality, we're going to put our future in the basket. All of our shoulds, Gretchen. All of our ought tos. All of our wishes and our hopes and how things ought to be. I wish I was a better. I'm going to take a vacation to Alaska. Future in the basket. I invite you to close your eyes. Because when we put our past and the future in the basket, there's this tendency to go, all right, Care, put my past in the basket, put my future in the basket. What's next? Right? There's this tendency to go, what's next? No next. We're putting next in the basket too. We're even putting the present. The sensations that come up. This feels weird. I kind of like my personality. I kind of like my creativity. Why the heck am I putting in the basket? Just for now. past, future, next. And if you're still with me, you can come into the room. Now here we're all in this room naked. No past, no nationality, no gender, no age. The thing that feels the same to you today, that felt the same when you were 12 years old, that thing that hasn't changed. We all know that thing, that space inside of us that feels the exact same today as it did when we were a kid. The thing that doesn't age. That which changes cannot be true. This thing in this room is true. It might be the only thing you know to be true. I know it's one of the only things I know to be true. That which changes cannot be true. This has never changed. This space, this isnness, this aliveness I can feel beneath my skin whenever I put my attention on it. Now here's a question. This isness doesn't have a color. Some people say it's white, it's gold, it's blue. Some people say no. But I would like to ask, if you sense a color, that which sees color, does that have a color? This thing that has always been the same beneath your skin, does it have a shape? And if a shape is seen, does the thing that was witnessing a shape, does that have a shape? Does it have an age? Was it ever born? And if the answer to that is, well, it was born when I was born, something was there to witness its beginning. Was that born? I didn't say, I only said leave your past, leave your mind in the basket. This is your self. If you didn't believe in it, would it go away? Can it have moods? Can it get sick? Can it die? When we have all of the parts of us in that basket we left outside, when we put that on, we can go out into the yard and I can ask questions like, describe that tree. And we'll give 6 different descriptions of a tree. But when we take all of that shit off of us, and just experience our true self beneath our meat suit, the thing that's looking out of my eyes at you and looking out of your eyes at me, the thing that makes us all the same, where all questions are the same. No color, no shape, no birth, no death. Our divine neutrality, Sue. And I invite you to come back to the room. And when we walk out of this room, we get to pick up what we want from that basket. We get to pick up whatever labels we want. That is what colors our experience. That I am a woman, that I have pain, that I have this ailment, that I have this trauma. But we can drop it like it's hot whenever we want. It doesn't take any time to get over trauma. We all have trauma. Abuse, rape, seeing something horrible, whatever. And we can, people like to compare, my trauma is worse than your trauma. But it's not true. It's not here. It can't hurt us. We don't have to hang on to it if we don't want. And that's home.
Neutrality. Yes.
Divine neutrality. It's kind of boring, but it's true. Experiences and thoughts come and go and color our experience, but everything comes from that place. Everything, that place is what gives rise, the formless, you know, everything comes from there and everything goes back to there. And so will we. Our meat suits will cease to exist, but what we are will continue forever.
I'm really glad that you did that. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've gone over, and we didn't get to hear from 4 people. Does anyone want to jump in and say something before we close? We're already in bonus moments. All right then. Hey Karen, can you hang for a few minutes after we say goodbye to everyone?
Yeah, I have another webinar I'm getting on in 30 minutes, but yeah, okay, I can hang for a couple.
So I'm going to say thank you, and this was really wonderful. I know there are more of these calls coming, and if you'd like to know about them, a really good way is to message me your email address, and I'll add you to my newsletter list so you get reminders. That's a really good way. Or if not, however you heard from me today, you'll probably hear from me again to announce the next one, because I seem to be making a pest of myself about these. I want to have these conversations.
Well, thanks for having me, Sue. I'm delighted. And had a ball.
Thank you. I'm gonna stop the recording now. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Gretchen. It was good to see you.